Welcome to the Seattle Overload podcast, where it's week 4 and we're previewing week 4. It's a continuation of our series. Griff and I joined by a very exciting guest to look at Seahawks at Giants Monday Night Football. A manager of research and analytics at NFL Next Gen Stats, Keegan Abdoo, previously worked with UCLA Football and Sports Info Solutions, and also a New York Giants fan. Keegan, how's it going?
It's going well. Just in the thick of things. Early season international games start this week, so start of some weird scheduling, and then it's only going to get worse. But it's all good, all fun.
International games, my Super Bowl, obviously.
Yes, of course, Maddie.
Right.
You ever make it to any of those?
I used to. They were good fun. I watched Colin Kaepernick do terrible things to the Jaguars defense.
Nice.
Like really, really bad things. Like,
you got to see that
40
live.
plus points. It was like peak Harbaugh. It was very cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
I actually went to the Falcons-Lions game at Wembley in 2014, I believe, and it might have been the worst football game I've ever seen.
I think I was at that game. Didn't that end on a Matt Prater field goal?
Yeah, it was the
but
one
also
where
some terrible clock management at the end.
Terrible clock management. There was a third and short wide receiver screen that Julio dropped that gave the ball back to the Lions. That's hilarious.
Is that Mike Smith? Mike Smith just like pooing his pants?
I think it was Mike Smith. Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah. Unreal. Look at us now. Who would have thought?
Griff, ever been to an international game?
No, sir. I've only homegrown American games. Yeah. Maybe I should get out sometime and do that.
Yeah. So, Keegan, how did you become a New York Giants fan? You are a New York Giants fan, right?
So I grew up in Jersey, about 20 minutes from the stadium, North Jersey. And honestly, my dad was kind of like both teams, so I feel like it could have went either way. But the Fiegels family moved to our town. Jeff Fiegels, former Seattle Seahawk, actually, when I was in 4th grade, and Blake, his son, became one of my best friends. Jeff was on the Giants for about 10 years after that, and we just became best family friends, went to games with them all the time. So I was all in on the Giants, 4th grader meeting an NFL player. I was like, oh my God, absolutely. So that's how it started. And I've been a Giants fan ever since. It's been really great. It was great for growing up. Won a Super Bowl when I was in 8th grade and my senior year of high school. Doesn't get much better than that timing wise. And last 5 or 6 years have been rough, but
the Eli years were that's quite the stretch to experience. I'm sure. Did you idolize Eli growing up?
Oh, I loved Eli. I think by the time I was in high school, I realized Eli's not the most consistent quarterback, or maybe not necessarily a Hall of Famer based on his play, but based on the moments that he's been in, and those 2 Super Bowl runs. I'm all in on the Eli Hall of Fame campaign. I'm not going to hate on that.
Let's not get sacrilegious. This guy is a bona fide Hall of Famer.
Exactly. Love the attitude, Maddie.
Yeah, I like so Keegan on Twitter at Keegan Abdoo. Make sure you follow him. Not profile picture. God damn it. Header picture is Eli Manning with Daniel Jones.
Yes, it is.
That's kind of copy, no?
Yeah, a little bit. It was a great picture of them. I think that was my Slack picture for a while. I just changed it to a really funny picture of Daniel Jones from the comeback, where he looks a little disheveled and his tongue's out. Maybe I'll change that to that too. I don't pay too much to attention to the Twitter these days, but maybe it's due for an upgrade. But I will say, shout out to Griff's header picture. I think that's the greatest one I've ever seen.
Nick Saban had a short stint teaching political science at Michigan State. A lot of people don't know that.
A lot of people don't. A lot of people don't.
Yeah, we shouldn't judge a book by its cover. You wouldn't extract from his tenor and demeanor at press conferences that he leaned that way. But
so. I mean, he was at Kent State during the Kent State game, right?
That's right.
Yeah, that must have lasted with him.
Yeah, he might be radicalized. He might be the most left-leaning public official in the state of Alabama, at least.
Well, I think that's pretty obvious. I mean, if he ran for Senate, like he probably wins,
Yeah, first, yeah,
regardless of red or blue. But,
right.
Yeah,
right.
any state, we're not just talking Alabama here. We're talking red and blue, like you said. Okay.
All right.
So you alluded to it, but just general overview of the Giants this year. That they had that kind of fun comeback against the Cardinals, which was crazy. The Cardinals then beat the Cowboys, so it's like, oh, maybe that meant something more. But the Giants did lose to the 49ers, as I think people predicted. But then it was kind of close. But are things miserable, Keegan?
I'd say things are pretty miserable. But to be fair, I think we've played the two of the three best teams in the NFC, at least, if not the league, especially from a defensive perspective. Like, I mean, the offensive issues, especially with missing Andrew Thomas for both games. Daniel Jones definitely invites some pressure on himself, but like going against the Cowboys and the 49ers pass rush in your first three games, it's a pretty tough start.
Yeah, absolutely nasty. On Daniel Jones, we're really curious about him. Like Pete Carroll mentions his mobility and how that's a challenge. I know Griff wants to kind of speak about how the run game can help young quarterbacks coming out. Like if you have mobility, it can really kind of hide some weaknesses or be an advantage for you as you kind of acclimatize to the league as well. How is he doing in, what is it now, year 3, 4?
He's in year 6, I think. He was drafted in 2019, so.
And he got a mini
year 5.
like a fake deal, did he?
Yeah, he got a 2-year deal. It's pretty expensive. If they can't really move on from him next season without a $69 million dead cap or something. So yeah. I mean, I thought Jones was, he was great last year for what he is. I think he can be, that 14th, 15th best quarterback in the league if everything's going right. I mean, they've really built the offense around his mobility last year, and they were able to be super consistent, staying ahead of the chains, had a very high success rate. But, with the lack of speed at their weapons last year, they just had, I think, one of the least explosive offenses by explosive plays over the past decade. Like they had maybe 18 all year. So, they went out, signed a bunch of guys, bring in Darren Waller, draft Jalen Hyatt, sign Paris Campbell, bring back Darius Slayton. So they definitely had an emphasis on speed this offseason. So far, we've only really seen that second half of the Cardinals game with it paying off.
Right. I was going to ask on the early returns on Hyatt. Obviously, there was a lot of talk about his usage in college and how that applied to the NFL with kind of the limited route tree. But in a straight line, he's fast. He's a tough cover, especially if you can get him a free release. So how do you see that marriage with Daniel Jones going in the future?
So Hyatt so far has been like a pure field stretcher. And he's actually had 2 deep receptions, both of which came in that second half. I think it's good to have him there taking off the top of the defense. He definitely has a long way to develop playing in that super spreader offense. But I mean, among players with at least 20 routes this season, he's averaged the highest max speed on his routes of 17 miles per hour. So that's directly translated. He's running. This is kind of ridiculous. His average route depth is 24 yards this year.
Wow.
Which is absurd. Also the highest in the league. I think he's the only one over 20 yards. And only DJ Moore has run more deep routes, which is, reaching over 20 yards than Hyatt. And Hyatt's ran about 60-yard routes fewer than DJ Moore. So clearly being used in that role. I'd like to see them maybe get him the ball underneath a little bit and see what he can do with some yak. But it's an exciting little addition. We'll see, as he acclimates more, if that can translate to some actual production and more of a full-time role. But yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, Griff and I, when Hyatt was coming out, we were like, this guy is kind of a weird one because obviously the offense he's coming from is all these super wide max splits and then just vertical choice routes. And it's how does that translate to the NFL? that it's interesting that underneath part of his game's yet to be kind of unlocked. And the excellent Next Gen Stats press packet that you put together for us, well, not for us personally, but you shared with us. It would be nice every week. Can we have one of them? But it's interesting to me that the Giants face press coverage 25.9% of the time, which is the sixth most in the league. Like, teams aren't backing off up from them. Now, I know there's a lot of mitigating factors there, like maybe they're not stacking receivers up, maybe maybe they're playing defenses that like playing off. It's only 3 weeks into the season, but the rest of the receiver group, like, it seems all I've seen from it is Hyatt's a burner. You mentioned some of the names they've drafted, but again, from that packet that you shared with us, their yards per play in 11 personnel, so 3 wide receivers out on the field, is 31st in the league at 4 yards per play. So all the other receivers just what? Or
yeah, I mean, they've really tried to build the plane out of slot guys this offseason. They have Sterling Shepard, Wan'Dale Robinson, Paris Campbell, Darren Waller might as well be a slot receiver. Like, It was a interesting strategy. Like, I think Slayton and Hodgins are solid players, but you just don't want them to be your number one outside guy. They really lack a true X, which limits the offense in a lot of ways, I would say. Also, just in general, I think the offense, as I kind of alluded to earlier, like, missing Andrew Thomas, 2 pass rushes. Daniel Jones, when he's dropped back to pass, like, he's had a defender in his lap when he hits the back of his drop, like, way too often to have a consistent offensive spirit. That's just really throwing them off.
Yeah. Back to Darren Waller, like, my stock perception of him is when he was rattled off a couple 1,000-yard seasons for the Raiders. But I didn't really realize he's like 3 years removed from that. Now, obviously, he's been hurt. I think that's been his biggest issue. But at 31, just from what you've seen in the first few weeks of the season, how much does he look like his peak elite self?
I think he actually looks very similar to it. So this is a super interesting stat that I looked up when they first acquired him. He's led the league in average route speed among all tight ends in now 4 consecutive seasons. Still leads the NFL this year. He's the only guy to average over 13.5 miles per hour. He's up in the 14 somewhere on his routes. And Noah Fant, your guy, is actually second in that.
Really?
In that metric. He's also, like, really over the past few years, like, been able to beat man coverage. And even this season, he's earning targets against man coverage. His target rate against man is like 25%, which is, really good for a tight end. I just don't think the connection's been there with Jones. I mean, he's sprayed a lot of the targets that he's thrown his way. And you can see, I feel like Waller's been a little frustrated. Again, the offense in general is such a mess. It's hard to blame Waller for that. And I'm hoping that, over these next few weeks, they can really start to mesh a little bit more, because he is de facto the number one receiver in our offense. One other thing I found with Waller when I was researching for this pod that I think you guys will like. So he aligns detached from the formation on over half of his plays, and defenses treat him kind of as that tweener position. So when the Giants have went 12 personnel, defenses have matched base on just 24% of plays. They've actually matched with dime, so 6 defensive backs, more than they've matched with base, which is pretty crazy. And it's about half the league average. 50% generally is how much you'll match base to 12. So I thought that was super interesting when it came to
that is very interesting, especially because, I mean, Seattle, they want to run nickel or even dime as much as they can get away with. Like, if Waller's that kind of detached on the line of scrimmage guy and it's 12, like, I think you're going to get nickel, and you're probably going to get a situation where Waller's getting matched up on like a Jamal Adams, and then is Jamal Adams going to blitz in his first game back of the 2023 season, or is he going to play some coverage, or, is Julian Love going to get matched up with Waller? Very interesting. Like, again, thanks to that packet you shared with us, I see the Giants using 12 personnel, the third most, and 33.5% of snaps, which is like really, really high. That seems to be where the game's won or lost for me from a Seattle perspective. Like, we've spoke on this pod about how when they're in the base look, that there's conflict. You can get these curl flat defenders who are asked to fit the run and play like force and set the edge, but also play like carry a wheel route back. If you could get like Seattle in base, and then you could get a wheel route from higher on like jet motion into it, maybe. I think and you run off the corner of a post route. I think that's where success comes for the Giants. But I don't know if Seattle's going to play base for that reason.
Right.
That's super interesting. I think that especially with all the bootlegs and stuff the Giants do, like if they were able to get the guys in base, they could hit an explosive or two that way. Whether it's Hyatt or anyone, like they have a pretty versatile group, even if they're all slot guys. Like they can line up all over the formation, at least if they're not wide. But that's definitely interesting. I will say Julian Love, former Giant. I was sad to see him go. I thought he was a very plus player, but he struggled in coverage by the numbers this year. He allowed the most EPA of any safety so far.
Yeah. I mean, he had a good second half against the Panthers, so maybe things are turning, but it's been rough. And just overall, like the Giants, again, I'll stop saying this. Any data used in here, unless I disclose it, is next gen stats, thanks to Keegan. So make sure you check that out. But the Giants' offense average pass EPA per play 29th in the league, and then the Seahawks' defense average pass EPA allowed 29th in the league. So something has to give, or they're both gonna be crap, and it's just gonna be a just terrible mess.
Just pig slop. Keegan, I had a question. So with defenses effectively treating 12 personnel like it's 11, and then connecting that to the Giants having an extremely high pass rate in general this year, at least looking at early down neutral state from rbsdm.com, which is a great resource. And I'm sure you've got access to pass rates as well. And then with the passing game perhaps not being as efficient as they want, do you think Dable and or Kafka have a desire to vary their tendency up when they are in 12, just to try to get different defensive behavior so that they can get more favorable looks, either influencing personnel or things of that nature?
Yeah, I mean, I think they'd love to if Saquon's back, but Matt Breida and Gary Brightwell isn't exactly like a scary run duo unless they're really using Jones in the run game. And like he was great last year. This year, the design runs have not really been there for Jones. I mean, he hasn't had a lot of opportunity because of game script, to be fair, but
True.
It just hasn't had the same juice. So I think we'll see, but yeah, it would be nice for the Giants to like commit to the run a little bit, get ahead, keep it ahead of the sticks, and then hit an explosive off of play action. I will say in the second half comeback, which was super interesting because when you're down, 28-3, or 28-7, you're usually not leaning into the play action game, but the Giants use play action on like over 3/4 of their dropbacks in the comeback. And that's where Jones had almost all of his production. So like, again, that was like a nice thing to see from this offensive call staff, like not giving up on play action, actually like using it more when you were down. So if they can, tie the run game to that, I think that's a good option for success later. And like, you draw up a max protection and get Hyatt on a deep route, hopefully break one.
Hey, Seattle might have Bobby Wagner having to turn and run with that. So there's definitely, it could be viable, although I think they have some, with Adams back and how they can send them off the edge into the teeth of bootlegs, which is what they'll do if they get that kind of look, along with Nwosu's pretty good at reading out whether it's a boot to his side and getting pressures like that. That fascinates me. I think surely it's obvious that that's how the Giants need to attack Seattle, but we will see. On that point, where are you at with Brian Dable? Because he was red hot as a hype candidate. Did a great job last year. Team outperformed expectations, right? Or did they? And then where are you at with him now? Because it's been a rough start, and if this game, I mean, the Giants are favored by 1.5, which is kind of nuts to me, but if this game does go the way of Seattle, it'll be a really tough start to the season, like 1-3, and
1-3 heading into Miami and Buffalo,
yeah,
which is just rough. So like with Dable, I've heard some things that I can't confirm any of this, so excuse my ignorance here, but I've heard there's been like some taking back of play calling and then giving it back, so that's never really a good sign, especially because Kafka and Wink were like such like sought after candidates this offseason. It just hasn't been there. Again, I do think the competition has been really tough, and there's been injuries. So I hate to blame it on this coaching staff, which I think is one of the deepest in the league. But clearly, like, they were not ready for week one. They, came out slow against the Cardinals, and then I think they did everything they could against the Niners, but we're just overwhelmed talent-wise. I wouldn't be throwing up because we overperformed so much last year. I wouldn't be that worried about underperforming, where I don't even know if it's necessarily underperforming other than the scores of these games. I don't think anyone expected them to beat Dallas or the 49ers, at least if they had a realistic view of this roster.
Yeah. Griff, are we done with the Giants offense, or should we, and Dable, or should we move to the defense?
I think we can. Well, okay, actually, no, I got 1 point. So actually, I want to wind it back to the Darren Waller discussion. I think that's a really interesting double-edged sword when you talk about, or the double-edged sword for mobile quarterbacks, getting that tall possession tight end, because it's good for, I think, the mobile quarterbacks who have a hard time staying in the pocket, because I think their presence, it locks them into the structure more. Kind of the best I ever saw Russell Wilson in the pocket at a gun, or at least one of his best periods, is when he was throwing to Jimmy Graham. So it was good for Russ, but it wasn't necessarily good for Jimmy in terms of getting his volume yardage. So the Jones to Waller, if it works out, I mean, I can kind of see that being the same scenario. If Waller's 100%, he can suit up for every game and he stays healthy. He may not have his most productive year, but then theoretically you could also see Jones operating out of the pocket maybe better than he ever has. But it's kind of moot at this point because there's so much else on that roster that isn't going right at the moment with injuries and everything, and trying to figure things out. But that's something as a neutral observer, and not just for this game ahead of with the Seahawks, that I'll be interested in seeing if that kind of plays out. Because it's like you can call the plays, but I really feel like personnel can affect kind of those high variance process QBs more than anything else, really. It's more of an idle comment, but if you had any follow-up thoughts, go for it.
Yeah, I mean, my only real thought in terms of like how I thought they were going to use Waller, and I don't know if they've used him this much, but like they have used him a lot on crossers. And like last year, I know there was this play that they just hit over and over and over again, where it was a Jones bootleg and then Daniel Bellinger running across the formation, and he's there for an outlet. And I think on bootlegs and play action, like Daniel Jones' air yards per attempt was like under 4, because it was all of those just dump offs. Yeah. And you would hope that someone like Waller could be like a guy that you actually want to get the ball in space like that to, and like he can create some yak opportunities. I haven't seen it that much so far. But again, it's hard to run bootlegs and play action when you're down 40 points,
for sure,
20 points, 28 points. So again, it will be really interesting to see with Saquon back, hopefully next week, Andrew Thomas back, and hopefully a little bit better game scripts, what this offense really wants to be.
Yeah. Sure. On the subject of game scripts, my last thing with the offense would be, you kind of mentioned how the offensive line is poor. Like, obviously, it doesn't help when teams are expecting pass or, skewing towards pass with the game script aspect. But, is this, and obviously Andrew Thomas being hurt, but is this offensive line poor, or like is it also, again, we're familiar with the mobile quarterback subject. Is it like exacerbated by Daniel Jones's mobile style as well? Is this offensive line really bad, or what's the kind of balance?
I don't know if it's necessarily Jones's mobility that leads him to hold on to the ball versus pressure. I think it's more of like a Ryan Tannehill thing where he just wants to like either doesn't sense pressure, which can be good
Mm.
and bad. It was really bad for his rookie year when he had all those fumble problems, but it also can be good when he stands in the pocket and delivers. And like you just see constantly every single season, Daniel Jones has been a top 5 pressured quarterback. Like the offensive line has gotten better with Andrew Thomas becoming a stud. It still has issues. I mean, you saw that week 1, Golonski was benched after allowing 4 sacks. No guard has allowed 4 sacks in a game going back to 2018 in our database. Yeah, that was really tough. They had Micah Parsons going on the inside and just demolishing him.
Yeah.
Evan Neal allowed 18 pressures in the first 2 games this season, which was, just giving us horrible flashbacks to Eric Flowers. One thing I will say with Evan Neal is he did hold his own last week. Only allowed 2 pressures and none on his matchups with Nick Bosa. So that was good, very promising to see. We'll see if that can continue. But yeah, they just don't really have a great interior. I mean, they drafted the guy, second rounder center this year, Michael Schmitz or whatever his name is. He's been okay. John Jacob Jinglesheimer Schmidt. But yeah, I think it just still has a long way to go in terms of pass protection. And it's kind of a vicious cycle of Jones holds the ball too much and he doesn't get the protection up front.
Right. Is there any data lens or data perspective with regards to drafting centers, whether drafting them high or the development curve? Because it seems like there are good centers that hit the market every year, quality, not the elite ones, but like that top 8 to 15 range that sign for $1 million or $2 million.
Yeah. I'm not familiar with any, but it will be interesting to see now that we have this pressure data that we can assign to
for sure
offensive linemen, how we can, project onto that. Again, run blocking is a whole different animal, and setting protections too is something that data will never be able to get.
Sure.
Yeah, let's talk about pressure probability now. So Keegan has an exciting. Well, I don't think this is the official announcement, but Keegan can certainly explain next gen stats, a pressure probability to us on the subject of pressure. So Keegan, pressure charting for us, when we look at the pressure stuff, like we look at pressure percentage, which is, I mean, it's pretty subjective. I am disillusioned with pressure data generally. So this sounds very exciting.
Yeah, so I can tell you what our pressures used to be, which was just distance-based logic. Did you get within 2 yards of the quarterback over the course of the drop back? That had a lot of issues. Doesn't it take into effect what the quarterback, how the quarterback reacts to pressure? So, like, for instance, Kyler Murray, because he's so twitchy and fast, he would always have like a bottom 5 pressure rate because he would always be able to escape the pocket and no guy would ever get within 2 yards of him. Now we are much better able to encapsulate that by building this model that is trained on, 90,000 passing plays over the past 5 seasons. We take the ground truth charting data and we are able to, feed that into a model that takes into account a bunch of things, including, how the quarterback is moving in regards to the pass rusher, how many blockers are in their path to the quarterback for every 10th of a second, which is, the accuracy of our data. So you can see not only, instead of just looking at a binary with pressure, like when did pressure occur on the player? Did a player get within 2 yards? You can tell how fast does pressure occur? Like when does it occur in the drop back? How long does it occur? So you get the temporal nature of it. And then you can also tell the magnitude because we have this pressure probability. So we can tell you, this guy had a 90% pressure probability, very high likelihood that he affected the quarterback more than a guy that got a 50% pressure probability. And the way we, create that into a binary is just picking a threshold, which we chose after a bunch of validation work and QA, watching plays. But yeah, it's really exciting stuff. And in addition to that, we also built models to better identify pass rushers and pass blockers. So we can tell you, if a running back was chip blocking now, we can tell you, which is some great stuff. Additionally, we built a model to assign pass blocking matchups based on the proximity of 2 players for every timestamp among a lot of other factors. Was there another guy engaged with him? The thing with chips, next gen data is in the shoulder pad, so you can't actually tell if the limbs are engaged, but we got really, really accurate results. So very excited about this stuff. We can finally evaluate offensive linemen, which is big for TV. Every broadcaster loves doing the sky cam of, Myles Garrett versus Andrew Thomas or whoever it might be. And now we can get, how often did this guy actually get pressure on those matchups and how many matchups were there? So it's really, really unlocked a lot of analysis abilities for us in game.
For sure. So we're exiting the world of it being like a pressure or no pressure binary and entering the world of that granularity, being able to determine the quality of the pressure and stuff. And I think that will really separate certain pass rushers and pass protectors as well. Because like you'll see some numbers, it's like, oh, that guy's hitting, 18% pressure or whatever, it is. And you put him right next to another guy that we all know is better. But you're like, why is that happening? So that will be interesting to allow us to parse those realities as well. Because some guys might win a certain way, but it may not be in a super valuable
right.
way.
The hustle guys, are going to get found out now.
Yeah. Well, we can definitely tell you who got the first pressure on a play. So we can tell you if, someone's coming up on a cleanup sack because they didn't get a pressure until 5 seconds into the play. So it's cool to see that stuff. It also gives us a pressure probability at snap, which is really interesting because it accounts for your alignment basically. So, you can expect nose tackles have a lot lower pressure probability at snap than a wide 9. And that's played out in the data, and they match like almost 1-to-1 population level, but on a play-by-play basis, you can kind of adjust pressure rate for your alignment and like your role in the offense and the defense.
Mm-hmm. And you'll be able to see like pass rush games with this as well, won't you? And
yeah, so we didn't actually like have a output of a model that is identifying pass rush games, but we've done so much work with this data now. Like it's definitely an off-season priority for us next year of doing twists and games and trying to actually like start classifying blitz schemes. I think that would be awesome. But
yeah, it sounds like this is pretty revolutionary for what you can accomplish, not just this year, but like it's just going to change how we view pass rush, as Griff kind of spoke to and what you've explained. So
yeah, it's a great foundation, but then an awesome springboard as well. Like I'm sure every off season you'll be thinking, oh, we can incorporate this, we can do that.
Yeah, how can we apply this model that we created to identify pass rush matchups to how can we identify that for coverage? Like how can we apply these learnings to other parts of the game, which we've done with some of our other models in the past. But it's really exciting stuff. And yeah, I'm excited to talk a little bit more about these numbers that are brand new for us when we get to the other side of the ball.
For sure.
Yes. For sure. So pass rushing. We're on the subject of pass rush, and this Giants defense. Griff in our notes said it's in disarray.
I would say that's pretty accurate, at least
it is. But Wink Martindale's supposed to have lots of pass rush and send the house, and it works.
He does do that. He does. He gets at the highest rate in a game in the next gen era on Thursday night. 84% of Brock Purdy's dropbacks.
Wow.
Giants are blitzing at the highest rate or second highest rate in the league because Brian Flores is also just absolutely sending it. Both of those defenses are would be the only 2 defenses to blitz on over half their snaps in the next gen era, by the way, which is a fun little note. But the Giants, it has not been good from the pass rushing perspective. They actually underratedly were second in pressure rate last year. They're 31st this year, 17 percentage point drop off. So it's been just absolutely anemic.
What happened there then? Did they lose people? Or?
They haven't really lost people. Like it's been 3 games, so small sample.
Yeah.
I think game script is a part of it. You know, it's hard to pin your ears back when you're losing by a lot and you think you're probably going to run on most plays. But you know, all the guys have been underperforming. Thibodeau has only 3 pressures this year, and all 3 of them have been unblocked, which is really tough. That's actually one thing that was an unfortunate finding of this new pass rush model. We can tell you, was there an unblocked pressure? And as you can imagine in Wink Martindale's scheme, who loves to just overload protections and is a wizard with that, that inflated Kayvon Thibodeau's 48 pressures a little bit last year. 11 of them were unblocked. He had the second most pressures of any rookie behind Hutchinson. We also had a lot of unblocked pressures, actually. But for the record. But it does seem like those were inflated a little bit by Wink's scheme. So that is unfortunate. It's definitely unfortunate.
Yeah, well, if we're to accentuate the positive, even though this is a Seahawks podcast, and we have a Seahawks slant. I mean, what Dexter Lawrence did last year from the nose tackle position is one of the most incredible defensive lineman seasons we've seen.
Absolutely insane. He generated 27 pressures as a nose tackle last year. There's never been a nose tackle, a guy aligned at zero tech that has generated over 20 in a season. He had over double the next closest guy. He's actually aligning at nose at an even higher rate as a zero tech this year, 47% versus 35% last year, and he leads the league in those snaps. It has not translated to that much pressure so far. He was actually held without a pressure for his first game since week 13, 2021 on last Thursday night. But I will say, for what he's still getting it, even with that zero burger game, he's still at 9.5%, which is like still very good for a defensive tackle. And what has been really promising with Sexy Dexy is 8.8% defensive stop rate, which is a career high and 3rd in the NFL. So his run defense, his run defense has always been good. It's just the rest of the run defense that is really just not had him pop in those numbers as much, but he's more disruptive than ever against the run game, which is really good to see.
For sure.
Yeah, Evan Brown has had a decent season, right, at center, Griff. One of those kind of good, not too expensive 1-year deal free agent centers you were talking about earlier, Griff. But that's going to be a tough test for him. Not many centers can handle Dexter Lawrence one-on-one, but
I got some fun pressure numbers for your guys' interior offensive line, at least.
Okay.
Yeah, Brown is struggling, isn't he?
No.
Oh,
the interior line has been great. Damian Lewis allowed just 1 pressure. He's lowest pressure rate among left guards. Phil Haynes is 3rd among right guards at 2.8%. And your guy, Evan Brown, 5th among centers at 2.9%. So
let's go. What a matchup.
Very strong interior line. Now, the backup tackles, unsurprisingly, have struggled. They've both allowed over a 10% pressure rate. But hopefully, if Cross and Lucas can get back and these guys can keep it up on the interior, you guys might have a top 5 offensive line by the end of the year, which is...
And I think the way Gino behaves in the pocket, I think that really kind of makes it more viable, especially with the tackles. I think he can work. From the eye test, he's been able to work with the protection he's got so far. And obviously, you can call plays that alleviate the stress of that, take a bit of a load off their shoulders.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see with the protection plan, given how Wink likes to send so many guys. If they just try to match numbers for numbers and just load up 12 personnel, just get a bunch of blockers in there, or if they try to spread it out and just throw hot and try to beat the blitz.
Right.
So they try to block it up
and cover zero schemes. They want you to throw the screen and throw hot. They get so excited because the corner's yes, go hit someone in the face.
Yeah, and sorry, I'd lost my train of thought.
No, that's all right. Yeah, and then as another jumping point, going back to Evan Brown and Dexter, it's when you send that many, you're likely forcing man protection, and then Dexter can feast because he's getting one-on-one looks. So I don't want him to get going. So I hope that they actually they play heavy up front. The Seahawks do. And just try to go number for number with Wink Martindale. I don't really want to test fate. I also think Geno's accuracy, he's very, very accurate quarterback, but there are contexts where it tends to dip. And when he's hurried, where it's pressure, where it's quick pressure, like really like unmanageable quick pressure, you can see because he's throwing off platform, and then that's when his arm strength does tank. And when his arm strength tanks, his accuracy tanks. Doesn't matter how well he anticipates it, how well he's processing or sees it. That's just when he gets into dicey situations. So I hope Seattle kind of has a loaded up, be run heavy and play action off of it mindset. At least when Wink is showing it. If he wants to play coy and kind of send a 5-man pressure from a normal-ish look, then fine. Then just play the card you're dealt. But yeah, if he starts showing like crazy activity pre-snap, I hope they bring the tight ends in, and that's kind of what they've been doing with these really interesting pistol looks and like sidecar looks.
I saw that one run out of like a T formation where they had Kenny and like almost like a jet motion with 2 lead blockers in the backfield. That was insane.
Yeah. And at first I couldn't tell if Waldron's just like screwing around just because he's like, I might as well try this. But I mean, heading into this Giants game, it's one, it's effective that they're doing it anyway, but I think it will apply with the Giants more than it would have previously, just because it's like when they had issues last year and they played even like poor or average defenses, when they had bad drives in those games, it was when like Vance Joseph was just sending the house at them.
And they can get into max protect looks so easily now, can't they?
Right.
With those guys in the backfield, along with, they've proven to be relatively diverse, like, and shift out of that stuff if they need to. And those guys, Noah Fant with his, what was it, second highest route speed in the NFL?
Yeah, over the past few years.
Yeah. It's a very balanced formation because they can get under center behavior in it via, well, one under center, but also pistol. But then they can also get in their drop back offense out of it because, like Maddie said, they're not afraid to shift into empty out of 12 personnel and just run pure drop back with them. So it allows them to access their entire offense basically. But yeah, it's Wink still knows what he's doing in the long run, at least, whiteboard anyway, his whiteboard stuff. So I'll be very intrigued to see who wins that battle, the protection and blitz design battle.
Yeah, it's a younger defense in general too. I mean, it was last year and it actually was fine, but this year that could explain, Winks definitely plays a harder defense. They're playing 2 rookies on the outside, which is like the first time that's happened going into the season in like a decade by any team. I love Deonte Banks and I thought he was an awesome pick, but he's had trouble staying healthy. We'll see. I got to ask you guys though, what's up with the JSN? What do you guys?
Well, we've just told you, Keegan. The problem is the multiple tight end looks are so effective. You mentioned the pressure rates from the backup tackles as well. There's a lot of consternation, but ultimately the tight end looks are proving so successful. And JSN, I mean, I'd be interested if you have any numbers on him. But from my film watching, my anecdotal nonsense, he seems to be given good routes, and he's not being given routes. Like, he gets given routes, he just has less usage with Metcalf and Lockett ahead of him. Yeah. And then I think he's like due a game. I don't know if it's this game necessarily. Maybe if they need like a quick pressure outlet in the slot and the tight ends aren't doing their thing. Maybe if they're just trying to play matchups. But ultimately, he's just been a very kind of glitzy decoy. Like that pick to to JSN, where DK Metcalf's routes kind of open on the outside. They ended up hitting that same concept and hitting DK on the outside route with JSN drawing the coverage inside and the underneath layer. He's just I don't think there's anything, surgically repaired wrist, 6 weeks off that.
He's a rookie receiver, and a lot of these rookie receivers that have blown up over the past few weeks is a rare thing too. So I don't think.
Well, and especially being like a good slot coming from college, like how often does a guy who's mainly known as a slot out of college immediately take the NFL by storm? Like it's a different game, different hash marks, different types of slot matchups, just different. Griff, do you have anything to add on that?
No, you covered it. I think it's just a matter of time type of thing there. So,
But I do think like Griff made a point in a previous podcast we did about how like he was more drafted for like beating kind of one high and middle field close stuff, which had
Wink
been
loves.
Yeah.
yeah.
Let's just cover 1 and cover 0, but
Yeah.
cover one
I
a
mean,
lot more,
it could be this game, but I just think, and that had been Gino's like not weakness per se, but he was slightly worse against one high defense, I believe, than two high. I don't know if your data agrees with that
yeah, I don't know
shady recollection, but yeah, I think he just needs like a one-on-one in the slot, like a clear one-on-one, or there's occasionally like one of these little angle routes or choice routes from the slot, which Gino probably could have hit. They will just take time, but he's due a big game. I think it's just not probably this game, or it might be. Let's see. To me, it's like the next evolution of the offense is him.
Yeah, he'll be lined up on a Dory in the slot, so definitely loses the speed game there, but he might be able to win with some short area quickness.
Yeah, we'll see. That'll be so. Is Adoree playing well?
He's playing solid. I think last year it was kind of shocking how well he and Fabian Moreau played when they were healthy. Like they were kind of shut down outside corners when, which was kind of crazy to see. But it's just been he's kind of been forced to move around a little bit with the injuries. It'll be interesting to see like a few full games with these 3 guys playing most downs again. And Adoree, if Giants are playing 45% base, like Adoree as a slot guy is not going to be on the field if the starting are healthy.
Sure.
So on like the talk of slot corners, and I saw this stat and was like, whoa, that's high. The Giants playing 44.6% base defense, which is first in the league. But then I reminded myself there's only 3 games and they've played the 49ers, the Cowboys in a very kind of run heavy script, and then the Cardinals, who I don't know what they're doing, but is that just opponent? Is that just opponent dictated?
Based. Yeah, I looked at it a little bit deeper with like matching. Like they were matching 12 personnel at about 67% base, which is higher than league average, but it's not crazy. But they've faced 20 plays of 22, 20 plays of 13, and 20 plays of 21. So
wow.
I think because Wink Martindale is like known for loving dime. He loves getting as many defensive backs out there as possible.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah.
I just don't think they've had a lot of opportunities against 11 personnel. And this week, with you guys maybe majoring in 12 a little bit more, I think that could continue to be the case. It's also been interesting. Isaiah Simmons has only played a quarter of snaps, so it's not even
is he
thing.
Is he categorized as a DB or a linebacker? Linebacker, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Well, Griff, anything else on the defense?
I don't think so. I think that covers it.
There you go.
I mean, yeah, it's going to be a battle fought over, the blitz really, and then the downstream effect from that.
And Gino has been lights out against the blitz this year, and just in general, Gino continues to put up top 5 success rates, and he's the CPO king since joining Seattle. So,
did we really need Keegan a picture of Geno Smith with Eli Manning?
Maybe that's what I really need. Yeah, just to bridge the gap for this week in solidarity.
I thought more of a successor. He was
it
right there.
Oh, I would. Yeah, no one was giving Gino a chance back then.
Are you a Justice for McAdoo truther?
No.
Okay. I was just curious. Some Giants fans
are. So. Well, with that decision specifically, I remember being very angry about it because I was attached to a stupid record of Eli starting the most games in a row. I don't think McAdoo was a great coach for the Giants. And then it only got worse with Joe Judge a few years later. I actually liked Shermer coming in a little bit, but it just wasn't there.
Got you.
Okay, finally, we have a very kind donation, but I'm not sure Keegan will be able to answer this, but we'll see. It seems like something which Keegan wouldn't be able to answer, but I could be completely wrong. Joe, thank you so much for your donation. Is Keegan able to share anything about if and when NFL Pro will release? Also, will pressure probability stats be added? Keegan.
Okay, so for NFL Pro, unfortunately, they're not running a beta version this year like they did last year. I can't speak with any certainty about future plans, but I would imagine there is a desire to get that productionized and added to the new NFL Plus project at some point in the future. I have no idea when, but trust me, we put a lot of work into that too. So I think it'd be really cool for people, not just our media clients, but a lot of people to be able to see a greater host of our stats and use kind of a way better updated version of a film room rather than just relying on Game Pass.
Sure.
Where you can filter for whatever your heart desires, or at least whatever we'll release.
There you go, Joe. Good question. And thank you for your donation as well.
And to answer the second part, yes, pressure stats would definitely be a part of that.
Very cool. Well, make sure you check out that. Make sure you check out all of the great stuff at NFL Next Gen Stats. Like, I still can't believe that the passing charts are publicly available for free. Like,
yeah,
that was
awesome.
a whole load. That was like seasons of Russell Wilson content. It was brilliant. Along with other quarterbacks.
Right in the middle like the plague. Yeah.
It really streamlines the discourse because we can just go see here, look at it. I'm showing.
Yeah,
you.
look, I'm right. I'm right, exactly. Which is what's important.
Exactly. And then anytime a quarterback does something uncharacteristic, it relitigates the entire conversation.
Oh yeah.
It's like, oh no, it's different now. See, he can do, or can't do X, Y, and Z. So it's yeah, you've really popped a live grenade into the timeline.
I got to give a shout out to our absolute stud front end engineer, Ken Reese. He's been with Next Gen from the start. He's the guy that not only designed all those passing charts and built the infrastructure to create those, also those beautiful dots you see every Sunday.
Beautiful stuff.
He created that as well. So,
go on, lad.
I love some all 22 dots live.
Oh yeah, everyone does.
Man, you can't beat it. All right, Keegan. Anything else you'd like to promote? Make sure you follow Keegan at Keegan Abdoo.
I'm not in a dark cave, I promise.
Griff's just going on one of his late night hikes.
Exactly.
Yeah, I will say, please tune in to Prime Vision, the alternate broadcast on Thursday Night Football. I think it's a really great viewing experience. You get to see the all 22. My good buddy Sam Schwartzstein is popping in with nice little research nuggets that he and I are finding that we're just feeding them in general, a big packet beforehand that they create all these graphics with, and we're feeding them stats in game. It's just, we have a 80% hit rate with the content that we give them on TNF Prime Vision compared to a 5% with every other stuff. So you're just seeing a lot more of our stuff, a lot more of our insights. And I think it's a really great viewing experience. I think especially the Prime Target stuff that they kind of developed in concert with us. Basically a green orb will shine around a receiver during the play if based on the formula that we have created, they have more than a 50% chance of gaining a first down if they are targeted. And Sam and his team, the Prime Vision team, put together this cool defensive alert thing that they're slowly rolling out, but that'll show you, pre-snap based on the movements, like should the quarterback worry about this guy blitzing or not for off-ball players only. So
wow, that's
really cool
dope.
Yeah.
I need to, I may or may not have to VPN. I might do that because every time I see a clip of it on Twitter, it's just nuts. It's literally what all football broadcasts should be like. I don't know why it's not more common. I'm sure it will be one day.
Sure it does.
But keep it up and I'll look into that VPN because it's very annoying. I can't get it in the United Kingdom Amazon.
Is that what it is? You can't get Prime Vision?
I believe it's because the company the broadcaster who shows it in the UK, they have the rights to every game, and so they show the Amazon games as well. So you don't get it.
Yeah,
it sucks.
That's a bummer. Anyway.
Yep.
Well, I
Anyway,
hope
very
you
niche
find
complaint.
that.
Griff has just had it. He's just left.
No,
Griff?
I'm here. My dogs were getting vocal.
Wow,
so I was being
he's such a
preemptive.
pro. He's done this before.
Yeah.
Well,
All
make
right,
sure you
Patty,
check that
well,
out.
you have a great day as you have your whole day in front of you, I'd imagine. And
It's 3:30 a.m.
oh God, you're a hero. You're a goddamn hero.
You're a hero, Keegan. Thank you so much for your time and enjoy the rest of the football season.
I
All right, you
appreciate it,
guys too.
Keegan. Thanks,
See ya.
man. Take care.